Never split the party. We hear everybody say this, and for players, it's because they know when they split the party, they're probably going to die. But for DMs, we hate when players split the party because it's also a nightmare for us to manage. Well, I'm going to give you some tips that are really easy to implement that are going to make managing a split party a lot easier. There's 3 things we're going to do. Number 1, we're going to do away with maps and minis when the party is split. Managing 2 sets of maps and 2 battlefields is just too hard to adjudicate. Number 2, we're going to change the way we think about combat in these situations. Normally, combat is a group of PCs against a group of enemies, and those 2 groups meet on the battlefield and all kinds of crazy interactions can happen. People can switch opponents with each other. People can jump into each other's combats. Groups of opponents can attack one PC. All kinds of great stuff can happen, and tactically that's really fun. But when you are managing a split party, that is a nightmare. What we're going to do instead is if combat occurs when the party's split, we're going to assign 1 or 2 enemies to each player. And that's it. They're going to lock in on these one-on-one battles with each other. The last thing you're going to do is you're going to completely change the way you do initiative, and this is what's going to make the whole system work. Instead of having everybody roll initiative at the beginning and trying to keep track of 2 separate battles worth, what you're going to do is you're going to just go around the table in order, just left to right, and each person's going to take their turn. When it's their turn, they are going to roll initiative. They can do this every round. You're going to compare their roll with the static initiative of the opponent you gave them. The static initiative is just going to be 10 plus their initiative bonus. So if you got an enemy with an initiative bonus of +3, then their initiative is 13. If the player beats that roll, they go first. If they don't beat that roll, you go first. And you're going to resolve those attacks against each other, and then you're going to move on to the next person. You're going to keep going around the table until everybody has either beaten their opponents, or they're running away, or they're laying there dying. How do you keep all of your players engaged when half of the party splits off and goes and does their own thing and gets involved in a combat, and the rest of the players are just sitting there bored? Here's a great way to solve that problem and keep everybody engaged. You're going to let the players who aren't involved run the stat blocks for the enemies. That's right. I know you don't want to give them your big bad's stat block, but there's nothing wrong with giving them some minor enemy stat blocks that they can run to attack their fellow players. This is going to be a lot of fun for the people at the table because, number 1, players don't get to run monster stat blocks a lot. Number 2, they're usually really simple, so the players are going to be able to run them pretty easily. And number 3, they almost never get to do pure PvP. Now here's how you're going to keep them honest and get them really invested in this combat. See, the players that are fighting against the bad guys are going to get experience if they win that battle. So what about the players that are running the monster stat blocks? You're going to do the same for them. I offer players an experience point award if they defeat their fellow players with those monsters. Then you're going to see some really fun energy at the table when people get really competitive and they start really going for the jugular and trying to take each other out. Now drop in the comments and let me know how you manage split parties in your game.